Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Meet Me Nation. David is out sick, so it's just gonna be us three. We're gonna keep it a little quick, but Daniel, thanks for coming in. You've always been a good backup. Kalechi, how
Good
you
to
doing,
be
man?
here.
Man, doing great, man.
Really, really good last week for UTSA after before the bye week. Got a really much needed win over Memphis, keeping our bowl game hopes alive. 44-36. Guys, what are your thoughts on the game? For me, really felt like a hallmark performance. Seemed like Owen and a lot of the guys, special teams, really started to come into their own, and a lot of those, I guess, little holes and issues we were facing before started to get even out. Even though I guess the future of this season is still kind of up to question, looks really promising going into next year.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, just watching this game, I was just really proud, and just the way that this team had bounced back really from facing a lot of adversity, man. It would have been easy to just lay down and quit, but they came out and they showed the world why that spread was so short. While we were talking about it on the last pod we were on. But yeah, just super proud of Owen. They're getting him nice, easy throws in the red zone. That's really why his touchdowns have been up. He's had a lot of touchdowns this year.
Mhm.
Our tight ends, man, are just showing why they're some of the best weapons in maybe all the conference. Chris Carpenter been that deep threat that's really taking the top off the defense. And really, the last thing that I want to see from the offense is just really getting that running game going. It's really been a struggle for us this year to move the ball running. But I know coach is not going to stop running the ball. But I definitely want to see our yards per carry go up. But yeah, man, overall, just a great game.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see something that Oscar had kind of mentioned. I don't know if y'all remember, but back when Burke first became the OC going into that first year, Oscar pointed out that he was a tight ends coach and he kind of expected that favoritism. And, that's kind of been missing. We know that Oscar was that clutch guy. I think the lack of that weight being carried by him, I don't think it's his fault, but I think Burke might be hitting something in his career where he's starting to work in what he knows best. And we see that with how, tight ends, even going into Tulsa, the FAU game, that I think the top receiver of that game was a tight end.
Hmm.
And now coming out of Memphis, Dan Dishman, the number two receiver for this game. And of course, not only is it Dan Dishman, but it's that trio that's being spread out. And I think if we keep seeing even just the same of that, right, there's a reason to be hopeful moving forward.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, overall stats for this game, UTSA, 408 total yards. Memphis, 516. They definitely started to pick up towards the fourth quarter. For us, I think what I noticed most was, I guess, a drop in penalties. Still, we need to work on it a bit. 7 penalties total. Memphis still had 12. A lot of that people seem to attribute to obviously playing the Alamodome. I think we had one of our lowest attendances in a while, but even with only like around 20,000 fans, I think Trailer mentioned it, but he was saying that even with 20,000, UTSA is at a point now where we have a good amount of like really hardcore fans, and so even when that attendance level is low, the people who are there are not like casual fans. Like they're the ones who are really invested in the program, and I think you could definitely hear that. And obviously, being the Alamodome, huge home field advantage. Arguably, I think it's one of the best home field advantages in college football. What are y'all's thoughts on that home field advantage? And I guess UTSA's penalty situation. I know earlier on this year, last year as well, it was a big issue for us. We kept shooting ourselves in the foot. Seems like we're cleaning it up a bit. Still some room to work on. But how do you guys think that's progressed? And how do you think, I guess, playing the Alamodome, having that home field advantage, helped cause, I guess, Memphis to struggle a bit more?
I mean, I think it's concerning on one end that this young team can't play away this year, but I mean, they can play at home. And, to be bowl eligible, I mean, that's kind of thinking ahead, but I mean, we've got UNT, we've got Temple at home, right? And if that persists, I mean, they're just very comfortable. And I think the fan base does a really good job of making them feel comfortable, right? You make a big play, whether it be a tackle, whether it be a turnover, right? We feed them well. I remember this last game, I was like in the second or third row, section 110, and I'm like making eye contact with these guys while they're hitting that triangle, right? So I think they appreciate that, and I think they're just fed well by that energy.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. And I mean, I can attest to it, from just my experience. And I've been there, during some of those really low attendance days, and I can always count on third down being extremely loud, no matter if there's 12,000 or if there's 40,000. Third down is going to be loud. It's a super big advantage for our defense every single week. Um, but yeah, I kind of knew that our penalties were going to trend lower for the rest of the season, just because I know how Coach Traylor is, and I know he's going to address it so much that it kind of like gets on your nerves a little bit. So I mean, I knew that was going to get handled. Yeah, I still want to see him get less. I think they had 8, and that's still kind of a lot. Not as many pre-snap, which is good. And like he says, he'll live with them during the whistle. But just another shout out on the defense, Vic Shaw with his first career sack. Man, shout out Vic Shaw. He works his butt off, deserves it. Great guy, man, and I'm so proud of him.
I know we had the Blackbird unis kind of, I guess, a new variant of them come in. I know for the next game against UNT, it's another home game. They're planning on bringing them out again. I've never, played on the college level, but Kelechi, I guess, like when it comes to like those uniforms, like from what I've seen at least, like whenever we have like a really nice uni, it always seems like we play a bit better. Do you feel like the uniforms, like having something that looks good, opposed to like what we're usually playing with, does that have an effect at all on the players' mindset and how they go out there?
I would say it's probably different for everybody, but me personally, a little bit, because you kind of like it. I would say, like, even just speaking on myself, when we had the Fiesta helmets for that one spring game,
Mhm.
man, that had me, kind of fired up. But yeah, it definitely does give you a little bit more juice. You look good, you feel good, you play good, baby.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the equipment team. I know like people have been harping on that for a long time, hoping we kind of bring the Blackbird into like our normal rotation. But Daniel, I know David talks about it a lot too. He's talked about it in almost every podcast. Like we should really harken into like almost having like a boys' state kind of thing where we have like our own unique color palette. But Daniel, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I'm excited to see how Nike plays into all this, right? I
Oh yeah,
think
oh yeah,
we were talking about it with David last time I was on the show, but I think possibly that's a big limiting factor as to how creative we can get and how fast you get equipment. I personally have always wanted to see, the AAC was always kind of this city school conference, right? Houston, Tulsa, the list goes on, Memphis. But I mean, I want to see like a San Antonio. I think this would be good for the brand. Put San Antonio on the chest on at least one jersey.
Mhm.
When you're trying to become like, the Spurs are ingrained as a city sport. And of course, we as a fan base are competing with like UT and the t-shirt fans in the area. But for these folks who are looking to join a football team, they don't go to school, they didn't go to college. I mean, I bet it would be great for them to see their city on our chest.
Sure. Yeah, no, going into the fourth quarter, UTSA was up, I think, 34 to 24. So it looked like we were really pulling away. Memphis somehow figured out in the fourth quarter how to pull away with 12 more points, make it look a lot closer than it was at the end at 36-44. I guess, what do you guys think was UTSA's weak point that maybe Memphis figured out that enabled them to get those last 12 points towards that fourth quarter?
I would just say in that situation, knowing that you're up multiple scores, you do kind of play backed off defense, and you're living with a lot of things that they're throwing. So I didn't look too much into it. After the last touchdown, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous, like, oh man, this could get a little dicey. But yeah, yeah, it's just naturally what you do. Is you do play a little bit looser in that, just because you don't want to give up a big play. But what sucked was they still were getting chunk plays. So yeah, it was really tough to watch. Um, but yeah, that's when you really need your D line to just go make a play, because a sack in those situations basically just ends the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to take into account what Memphis was still playing for at that time. And, we had a healthy lead, but like we saw, I mean, losing to Memphis in the second half was not completely impossible. So they're being fueled by possibly a shot at the conference championship, possibly a ranking. I know there were coaches ranked, but I think beating us probably would have maybe put them in the AP the next week. So, I mean, they're in a sense playing for a lot more, and being that we had that lead, it's easy to see where those lines cross of our energy kind of hitting it, taking the foot off the gas versus what they're still playing for in their season.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard it was like one of our first ranked wins. I'm assuming that was coach's poll, right, for Memphis?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I personally, I mean, I'm surprised. I'm surprised we haven't gotten roasted for that more on Twitter. But I'm personally not counting it as our first rank win. I've got my fingers crossed
Yeah.
for Army.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think for me at least, this game definitely seemed to change the vibe, especially with like the coaching interviews. I know, after Rice, that loss really, really hurt us. We beat FAU, but again, it's FAU. No offense to them. Then losing to Tulsa again kind of kicked all the wind out. But it seems like that win against Memphis at home really seemed to change the whole demeanor, at least when it comes to the coaching staff. Trailer, I don't think broke a smile since the week before last, and now seems a lot more happy, more confident. How do you guys feel this win played on our overall vibe, our overall mentality going into like the last quarter of our season?
Well, I would really want to know what happened in that locker room, and maybe Kledge can speak on what has to happen for this conclusion or this result that we got. But I don't know how you come back after Tulsa, right? I can see how maybe after Tulsa you maybe sneak one on UNT and do what you have to do against Temple, but Memphis. I mean, that's a crazy 180. So, I mean, maybe Clutch can share what might have happened or what had to have happened to come away, have that energy to pull off a win against Memphis. Because I mean, I put myself in their shoes, and a choke loss to Tulsa is just
Yeah. Demoralizing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I would say what Coach Traylor really just preaches is we're not going to change what we do. Like, we're just going to go out there, win. No matter you win or loss, we're just trying to get 1% better. And, by the end of the season, when every other team doesn't want to play anymore, that's when we're hitting our best stride. So we used to always say November to remember. This is when the games count. So it would actually looking at it, it really shouldn't surprise me too much why they won this game. He always puts the most emphasis on this month of the season, especially because that's just when it's, the easiest to kind of give up and kind of relax a little bit. So he already prepares for that in August and in our off season program. So, I mean, just a shout out to him, man. Just an
yeah,
absolutely great coach. Especially when everybody that's, not in that building doesn't know what's going on. He always has his guys motivated. There's never no quit in them, and I mean, I just love to see it, man. I'm so proud.
yeah.
Special teams seemed to struggle a little bit earlier in the season, but now it seems to be really honing in. Tate Sandell, 54-yard field goal, really seemed to kind of set the tone for the rest of the game for us. Season record or school record for that. How do you guys think that moment was for shifting the momentum in the game? And I guess when it comes to special teams and other areas where we have to improve, I know obviously from the QB position, there's a lot of improvement that's been happening. Things look really promising. Are there any other areas that you guys see right now that we need to work on? And as far as the progress we've made, which areas do you feel are you most impressed with?
I mean, I think the easy one's the run. I have trouble understanding, like, do you guys think that's like an offensive line deficiency that we're working on given, the youth and injuries, or is that just something going on mentally with our running backs? I just historically, you know, being so stacked are our expectations, right? Expectations versus the reality. There's a huge gap there coming into the season versus where we are now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's probably more so offensive line. I know we're playing a lot of young guys right now. Just we're getting killed with injuries, man. But
Yeah.
what I've really noticed is our tight ends are kind of a part of our run game now, and we're looking at each one of our tight ends because they're so dynamic and can really run. They're an extension of our run game, and we're giving them the ball out in space, letting them turn up, get a first down. They're just getting 5 yards. That's what we want. Stay in front of the sticks, and that's kind of why Owen's passing attempts have been so high, but his number, like his passing yards, aren't necessarily so high. Is because Coach Turner kind of knows that quick game has to be an extension of our run game, just because we're just so inexperienced in the interior of our offensive line.
Mm.
But what I want to see get better is kind of I just want to see him take some more one-on-one shots. Chris Carpenter's been winning his these past few weeks, making a big play in each game. But we have some real weapons on the outside, and I still want to see them, take a few more shots to really open this offense up even more.
Yeah, I mean, definitely seems to be playing that way. I mean, injuries, like I think Daniel you mentioned, are something that we haven't really touched on a lot, but we are really a decimated team right now. I believe Cardenas is out now indefinitely for the rest of the
Yeah.
season, so that's a
Hmm.
pretty big loss. McEwen, Clark, these guys are pretty big players, and not having them, but still being able to pull off that win and perform the way we did was pretty key. But I think the rest of the matchups that we have, we've got North Texas coming in. Thankfully, it's going to be the Alamo Dome, so we get that advantage. Temple as well, again in the Alamo Dome. The scary one's going to be at Army away there at West Point. That'll be pretty frightening. But outside of that, I mean, personally, I feel like the next two matchups against North Texas and Temple, especially having that home field advantage, is going to be, in my opinion at least, kind of for me favoring UTSA. Also, it's pretty interesting that like we kind of hit the stride at the right time as far as national broadcasts go. I think our Memphis game was ESPN2. All our previous games were ESPN Plus, with the exception of the Longhorns game. The upcoming two games, North Texas and Temple, are both going to be ESPN2. So really a lot of eyes there. And then Army is going to be CBS Sports. But I guess this is more for Kalechi. Like obviously being a player, knowing that you're going to be playing, I guess, on a bigger stage for a national audience, does that like change any of the locker room dynamic or the way players play or practice?
I would say practice probably not. The real like moment when you start to notice that is when you see like when your whole family's in the stands, or all your friends are texting you that they're gonna watch the game, closer to game day, I would say you start feeling it. But early in the week, not really. Coach Taylor's probably not gonna mention it too much to the guys just because at the end of the day, like for them, it shouldn't matter too much.
Mhm.
They're playing for a bowl game. I mean, that's what the rest of this season is for. And these next two home games, if we handle our business here, there's not as much, weighing on that last heavyweight battle that we're gonna have with Army. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think these next two games are make or break it for sure.
Daniel, any thoughts?
I've never played college ball.
No, totally understandable. Totally understandable. UNT lost to Memphis on October 19th, 44-52. Right now, overall, they're sitting at 5-4. I think they're on a 3-game losing streak. So, not necessarily, I guess someone we really need to be afraid of. But I know UNT, there's definitely like a in-state rivalry outside Texas State. I'd maybe consider them like a number 2 rival. How do you guys see this Friday's game going in the Alamo Dome? Do you guys have any predictions?
I think there's a real opportunity to establish the run here. I mean, that was kind of the success that, I mean, you get in a shootout with Tulane, who didn't pass that much on them. I mean, they had Makai Hughes, which is, a beast of a running back. I think on his own put up 195 yards or was at least most of the share. Obviously we've had our struggles, but, they, compared to others, struggle a little bit with that run. On the other hand, right, I think 400 yards against over 400 yards against Tulsa, Tulane, and Memphis, right? And I think Coach was touching on this in his interview today. Be ready. My thing is, I'm ready to slap my face with the busted coverages that we're going to see. I mean, there's just going to be some bombs that are going to get thrown down the field. I think the big thing is just going to be us outscoring them. That's going to be the key.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. That North Texas scheme is really, really, really hard to stop. Even in prior years, Coach Traylor, that's kind of been his message. He'll even tell us straight up, like, we might have to just outscore these guys. Like, it's really, really hard to stop. It's scheme. There's so many different cover 4 beaters, cover 3 beaters that it's going to be tough on our guys, man. We're going to have to be really, really focused and have good eyes for this game. But the key for this North Texas game is stopping the run because their whole offense, that's what it started on. And they usually do have a really good run game, always have good backs. So I think if we can really stop the run, let us get our, dime and nickel packages out there. Because I think that's going to be one of the only ways to stop this passing game is to get more, DBs out there. So I think we stop the run, we win the game.
Yeah, I
And
think.
that's something I think we've done a good job at. I mean, you look at even Texas State and Texas, at our worst in the season, they weren't able to put up more than 160 on us. No one's really crossed that 200 line as far as
Yep.
running goes. Whereas Tulsa, I think, was able to run over 200 on UNT. So a feather in our cap, and something that makes me kind of hopeful, right? Is if you look at just the quarterback numbers, they can get a little scary. I think Morris's completions in the 70 range, McCown's in the 50 range, right? But when you look at the teams and sacks that they've gone up against, the highest they've seen so far, and that's sacks that team has up to now, the highest has been 28. That was Tulane. And then the next two were Army and Memphis, who are at 20 sacks each. Whereas where we stand right now, we're at 29 sacks. So I think that's going to be the big difference maker is pressure on the quarterback, and really skewing his numbers going into this game. And I don't think he's faced something like that so far this season.
As of 3 hours ago, Vegas has UNT as 1.5-point favorites. This is still, obviously them playing in the Alamodome. Only thing I can think of is, UNT only needs one more win to be bowl eligible. So I think that's going to give them a little bit extra fire as opposed to, obviously we're going to have one more game against Temple after this. How do you guys think that's going to affect their performance? And I guess when it comes down to, the Vegas odds, what do you guys think is going to be the final score?
I'll say my prediction for this one, I think it's going to be high scoring. I have the Roadrunners winning 41-38.
I have the same idea. I was just going to say 48-45.
Okay, nice. I don't know. For some reason, I'm just like, I feel like Owen's really hitting his stride. I'm going to go like, whoo, I don't know, man. I'm putting us at least 2 touchdown favorites. I think he's really going to come in hot, especially after the last game. I think like playing at home after you've just played at home. And then obviously I'm very, I'm very sentimental about those Blackboard unis. So the fact that we're bringing those on again, I think it's going to be a pretty good matchup. But
yeah, I think the only thing keeping me from being that optimistic is the staying power, right? I mean, that's how Tulsa ended, and even having the lead we did against Memphis, right? There's obviously a little bit of a staying power problem. I'm not sure if that goes away, but I think there's enough energy to at least get the dub.
Yeah, and I mean, also having Cardenas out. I know Cardenas has been historically, he's like the rabbit's foot for our team. I feel like whenever we need like a super clutch play, he's always coming out there. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they play without him. Remaining 2 games, we got Temple and then Army. Army, I mean, these guys are ranked; they're killing it right now. No predictions on my end there. But when it comes to Temple, it's going to be another home game. How do you guys think it's going to play out? And do you think that knowing that we have 2 more games to play, do you guys feel like the coaching staff is going to be more conservative, especially from an injuries perspective, of maybe not, pushing the limits as much and trying to stay as healthy as we can going into Temple?
I would say Coach Traylor, he's definitely gonna ease up a bit in practice, like with full padded practice at this point in the season. But I mean, schedule's not changing too much this late in the season. It's just kind of not like you get into your habits and you're already in your routines and whatnot. So there's not too much to change there. I would say against Temple's they have a really good offensive scheme too. Their quarterback he's a real player. And anytime you have a really good quarterback, you always have a chance. So that's another game that I think is going to be really close. But that home field advantage in these kind of games I think, is going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I'll probably eat the cheese on Temple, but I mean that's one thing that at least the team can't do. I mean, you've got so much riding on it, right? And a season where you had 3 games that you should have won, I don't think the team's going to fall asleep on anything.
Yeah.
Dan, you brought up a good final question about bowl game predictions. Obviously, we don't want to eat the cheese. We still got 2 more games, but if UTSA does win out the remaining 2 games, nothing about Army right now, but do you have any predictions on bowl games you'd like us to be in, or where you see us going?
To copy someone else's homework, the fun, and we're not on too many lists right now, but the fun one that I saw, and it got updated 3 days ago on Athlon. Athlon has us at the First Responders, which is the January 3rd bowl against TCU.
Okay, dang.
But I mean, realistically, I could see us in Frisco again versus a Sun Belt team. I wouldn't even rule out, playing Texas State again. I mean, that would be a funny, there's nothing stopping that from happening, right? And I think it'd be great. I mean, the shape that we're in now to kind of cancel out what happened earlier this season, I think it'd be a great opportunity.
Clutch. Yeah, I
Yeah,
noticed you nodded your head when you heard that.
yeah. The first responder bowl kind of gives me some PTSD. Um, I just hope for some of my OGs that are still there, for their sake, that we're not going back to Frisco.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
mean,
honestly,
I'm biased. Frisco is like 10 minutes down the street from me now. I'm praying for a DFW
okay,
bowl.
okay. Yeah, because just praying for them, man. I hope they get to go to a nice location.
Yeah, yeah.
I always knew back in the day when we weren't very good that we used to always set our eyes on the Bahama Bowl. That was kind of like our Super Bowl. Like we just want to get to the Bahamas. So I think if we, really turn our season around, that'll be a good reward for the guys, man. Let them go have a week in the Bahamas.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I'd love to see us play TCU right now, having a bit of a down year after their previous, crazy runs. And so if it was time to take on a big team, now would be the time. But I totally see where Kalechi's coming from. Maybe going to Frisco again ain't the greatest thing. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up on our end right now for the podcast. For all you listeners, we got 2 more home games right now. Now's really the time to come support the team. They're on a bit of a hot streak, or it looks like they're about to be on a hot streak. And once Army comes in, it's going to be all cards off the table. So if you're in San Antonio, you can go to the Alamo Dome. Definitely, as Coach Traylor says, you're not going to get any better dollar value in San Antonio than going to see UTSA. So that's about it on my end. Kalechi, Daniel, anything else?
I'm just jealous of everybody who's gonna get to go to the game. I mean, it's gonna be a shootout. It's gonna be a classic. I'll be at the Boozy Bird here in Addison with the DFW Alumni Association. So I'll be with some fellow Roadrunners, but man, I'd rather be in that Alamo Dome.
Oh yeah, and I'll say just it's gonna be a great atmosphere. 2 Friday night lights back to back. Gotta love it. It's football weather outside. It's gonna be a great atmosphere, man. Just if you're a fan, I would want to get out there. I'm gonna be there. So yeah, birds up, baby.
Heck yeah,
Birds
man.
up.
It's going to be good weather outside, 71 degrees inside. So can't ask for anything better. But thanks for all you guys listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
God bless. Birds up.
Birds up.